I am so honored today to be able to introduce you to Trisha Bryan. I met Trisha when she came to Stuttgart, Germany, in order to help us and do a social media training and also a parents control training with social media. And I took so many notes that I haven't taken that many notes ever, but the content of this is so relevant and helpful. And our Germans, as well as the internationals, were asking just as many questions. So, without hearing from me much anymore, Trisha, I want you to introduce yourself and take it away. Thank
Okay,
you so much for
you're
doing this
welcome.
for us.
Thank you for having me. I am Trisha Bryan. I am with True Justice International, and I am what we call our Will Force Director. So my role is education and awareness on human trafficking, but then also I do a lot with looking at how predators prey on our kids, how that grooming process, what that looks like, and where the dangers and pitfalls are, to really get the aspect of awareness out there and how to protect for both parents and children, and just to understand that there are dangers out there. So today I'm going to go over our parental control that I put together. In the States here, just to tell you a little bit of where this came from for me and where my passion came from, was I kept seeing for probably about a 6-month period over and over again of kids disappearing. Meeting up with somebody, and it all kept coming back to social media. And I kept getting parents calling me, my kids have this person on their phone, or they've done this on their phone, or I found this on their phone. And so God just really put this burning desire in my heart that this was something that had to be addressed. I'm a mom of 3 girls. I have one who just finished her first year of college. I have one who is a junior in high school, and one who's a 7th grader. And so being a mom of 3 girls, they would also come home and share things. And so this is where this whole process came from, and where this training came from, was that, it was just really something God put on my heart to just really share with other parents. And I'm going to just jump into the presentation with you guys. The first couple of slides, I don't know what all you guys can see, kind of go along with human trafficking. So I'm not going to talk a whole lot about that, because I know you guys are well versed in what human trafficking is and statistics and things like that. So the first one we're going to look at is, what age do children gain access to electronics? And statistically, 1/3 of children under the age of 1 have used a smartphone or tablet. I have a friend who has, she's 2 now. She was 18 months. I went over to visit her. I have a lock on my phone. And within minutes, this little girl was in my phone watching Disney videos. And it wasn't any time at all. And I had a password on my phone. So that just kind of blew my mind, but it also tells me how technologically savvy these toddlers are. And we're not even talking, children of school age, we're talking toddlers. As we see, as our society is changing, and especially in the midst of this pandemic of COVID, there are so many people on online medias, online platforms, so much more than we ever have been. And that includes our children. But by the age of 2, most kids have a mobile device. By 5 years old, a lot of them have their own device, meaning that it's theirs, whether it's a tablet, whether it's a cell phone. A huge amount of kids in kindergarten have their own cell phones. So when we're looking at these statistics, we are in a whole new generation of online access. And what we don't understand is that we're giving our children this device that has more power than the computers in the entire room that sent the first rocket to space. They have so much power, they have so much ability, and most times we just give them to them and say, here you go. You know more than I do. You can maneuver this. You can fashion this. You're good to go. And that's a really dangerous thing, I have found, especially being a mom of my own children, things that have come up and things that we've encountered because of what they've been allowed to have. So when we look at just how do we maneuver this world, because it is, you've got to adapt to it. You can't say, oh, I'm never going to give my kid a phone. You can choose when, but they're going to have access to them. In our county, in our school districts, kids get iPads in school. They don't always get to come home with them. Elementary have to stay at the school. But again, with this pandemic, all of those iPads went home with every single kid. So every kid in our county has a iPad at home. And our internet services are offering free internet um, so that they can do their schoolwork. So we've just given a whole lot of kids access to a whole lot of things without really thinking about that aspect. So you have to talk to your kids. It's so important to have those conversations. When we look at what they can get into, the chances of them seeing something that's going to make them uncomfortable is very, very high. Whether it be pornography, whether it be violence, whether it be some kind of a drug something. You know, a lot of times we will let them watch YouTube, or we'll let them watch something that we think is kid friendly. And unfortunately, you know, a lot of those YouTube videos will be very, very, very kid friendly. And all of a sudden there's something spliced in there that is not kid friendly. And then it goes back to kid friendly stuff. Um, we're seeing that more and more. We're seeing people getting in there and splicing into um, YouTube stuff that is geared towards children. We see it with video games. Robotics is or Roblox is a video game that a lot of kids, little kids play. It's kind of a Lego themed game, and they have found sexual content in those games. And so just understanding that the chance is your kids are going to see something that you don't want them to see. But how do you set that precedence? How do you talk to them? Having that open communication, then being able to say, I saw this and this made me feel funny. You know, obviously you're not going to sit there and say to a 3-year-old, if you see pornography, but you can say, you know, if you see something that makes your tummy feel funny, if you see something that makes you feel funny inside, or it scares you, or it makes you curious and you would like to know more, anytime you see something, you know that you can always talk to me about it. You can always come and have a conversation with me about it. You want to keep those lines of communication open, because kids are going to see stuff that we don't want them to see. That's just the fact of the matter. And the more I've seen of how this whole internet world works, especially when kids get into social media, they are preyed upon constantly. So that is just something to kind of keep in mind of what we're looking at in these statistics. Sorry, I'm trying to get my next. Okay, so the truth is pornography is very much out there. It is very prevalent in America. It's prevalent everywhere. But there are 68 million porn searches a day. 90% of children age 8 to 16 have viewed porn. It is something that is a pandemic. And I can tell you, especially when I go in our classrooms here and I talk to the kids, and I mean, I had a classroom of boys, and I was like, if I asked all of you, how many of you have watched porn? I'm sure that most of you would put your hand up, and every single one of them put their hand up. They all told on themselves. And so this is 9th grade boys that I had in that classroom. It's in their faces. And I will say, with this pandemic, that is something that has increased exponentially, that we have seen the viewing of porn and things within that industry skyrocket, because people are home and people are bored. You know, understanding that there are predators out there that are going to come at our kids, that they're going to question, you know, there are safety measures that you can put on phones. There's safety measures that you can put on your routers in your home. But just having that conversation, and this is not necessarily an easy conversation to have, but it's an important conversation to have. And just understanding, you know, when I talk to my children, it's really about who God created them to be. Why it is just so important that God created sex to be something sacred between a husband and a wife. But also helping kids understand that when they're watching porn, they are partaking in human trafficking, because a lot of the stuff out there is absolutely combined and they don't realize that. And I will say that when I share that and they kind of process what human trafficking is and how it hurts people, I do see eyes kind of be like, oh, I didn't realize I was doing that. So getting that information out is something that is just a big. Um, when we look at raising kids in the digital age, it affects all aspects of them. Some of it is good, some of it is bad, but we are seeing harms in their attention span, meaning that they just they can't focus. They can't stay on one thing. They are constantly needing to be entertained. They constantly need that entertainment value. We are seeing less of kids using their imagination and playing, and more, sitting in front of TVs and having to be entertained. It can hurt their school performance because they are not focusing on, they're not able to focus. They're not able to get their brains focused on what is being taught. Again, they don't self-soothe. They don't have that ability to kind of calm themselves or find something to do to relieve that stress. And I believe that is one of the reasons we're seeing increased anxiety with the social media, with the digital age, because they don't know how to self-soothe. And the internet and the social media create such a expectation of excellence because it's not real. People don't put their real lives out there. And so we're seeing a lot of effects of that, where we're seeing a lot of kids have a lot more anxiety and social issues and things like that. We do find that it does help with their multitasking. They're able to kind of multitask. And as we have found with not being able to go to school and all of that, it can be effective. I mean, here we are doing a America, Germany thing, and we're able to do that. And that comes from the digital age. And so it's got some wonderful things also. But it does affect some of the just development and things that we're seeing within kids today. Let me, hold on, there we go. So teens and technology. And this is probably where my biggest focus is. I have asked that question in schools for the last probably like 3.5 years now. I've asked kids, how long does it take for a stranger that you meet online, someone that you've never met, that you just started to talk to online, how long does it take for that person to become a friend? And the number one answer I get is within a matter of minutes. I've had a couple have given me, a week, couple weeks, a month, couple months, and that's probably the biggest span of time has been a couple months. Our kids are raised in a world of technology. They're raised in a world of social media. And the whole point of social media is to get noticed, get likes, to get recognized, to get your stories looked at, and have people comment. And so they're hungry for attention. They're hungry for people to recognize them, and they want all the attention they can get. And so you're fighting this battle back and forth of protecting them. Do not have friends you don't know. Do not talk to people you don't know. But yet the whole purpose of social media is to get people that you don't know. And so you kind of are ramming heads there on two sides of that coin. I don't know about you. I don't know what social media you guys have. I can tell you throughout this pandemic, I have had about 5 or 6 different men direct message me through my social media. I did do a Zoom call with a group of high school students a couple weeks ago, and every high school student had been messaged through their social media with somebody who was trying to connect with them that they did not know and trying to start conversations with them. So understanding that the predators are out there. Bark did a documentary I don't know, it's probably about a year ago or so, but they took a woman who was older. They, obviously put a lot of makeup on her and, fixed her up to make her look like a child. They set up an Instagram page for her. They set up social media for her. And then they just sat back and watched. And they took video and they took documentary of the amount of people that came at her, the amount of people that commented to her, the amount of sexual content that was in those comments. And they thought she was a 13-year-old girl. And that's what they were portraying her at, I believe, was like a 12 or 13-year-old girl. And the things that were being said to her were just disgusting. And so if you think that your kids are on social media and people are not approaching them, they are. I know in Germany, social media might not be quite as big as it is here, but I think it is something that is growing. understanding that the online world to our teenagers is their life. And especially with this pandemic and the fact that they can't maybe interact with their normal friends. I have sat in my office with 12-year-olds who these people are their entire life. And, you know, if they talk to somebody else, they're cheating. And, you know, they can't see past this online world. It is something that is very just deep in their bones. And especially if you're dealing with a kid who has some insecurities, has some emotional background, has some trauma from childhood, this online world can be a really scary place for them because they're so hungry to connect with somebody that they are going to do anything they can to connect with that person. Um, so we're going to just look at some social media here that when we look at what are the most popular, what are used the most, what are the teens using the most, these are them. So Instagram is probably one of the most widely used social media aspects out there. Facebook has kind of gone to the wayside, especially for teenagers. Very few use it. It's kind of where mom and dads hang out, and so the teenagers don't want to be there. Instagram has kind of become their Facebook. So Instagram, you can have multiple accounts on Instagram, and this is something that a lot of parents don't know. So they can have their main account, and then they can have multiple accounts. I had one girl that I worked with, she had 6 Instagram accounts. Her mom knew about one. And so those extra Instagram accounts are where they post things that they don't want their parents to see. So they may give you their Instagram account that you think this is their main account, and then they have all these other accounts. So one way to tell if they have multiple accounts is when you go into their Instagram and you look down in the bottom left-hand corner, or even in the top, you can click. If there's an arrow, it'll show you that they've got more than one account. And then down in the bottom right-hand corner, it will also show you if they have more than one account. The little picture I have of this man was a guy who actually tried to talk to one of my daughters. His little tagline, if you can see it, says something about daddy take care of you, $400 weekly allowance. And so he had messaged her and said, hello, beautiful, to her. This is what we call catfishing. You know, just trying to lure people in, get them to start a conversation with him. So this was my oldest daughter, and we knew very blatantly that this was a predator of some sort. We knew this account was not going to last real long. He had only had 4 posts, but he was following 115 people. And so he was working that network of trying to get people and lure them in. My other daughter with Instagram, she had somebody who catfished her. And she's kind of more quiet. She doesn't post a whole lot on social media. She's not out there a whole lot. But this guy started messaging her, and he told her how pretty she was. He told her how athletic she was and how smart she was, and everything that a 14-year-old girl wanted to hear. And I happened to hear her talking to a girlfriend and talking about this boy who played guitar. And I was like, I don't know who this boy is. So I did what moms do, and I sent my older daughter to get all the details for me because I needed to know who this boy was and what was going on. But he was from Tennessee. And so as I had the conversations with my middle child, I was like, you know better. You're not allowed to have anybody that you don't know on your social media. And, you know, her answer to me was, Mom, it's not like I was going to do anything. But what these kids don't see, and the patterns that we're seeing as I've researched things, is they will have conversations with our kids for months, months upon months upon months. You know, you're talking months, a year, that they will contact them. They will talk to them on a daily basis. They will build that rapport with them. And then they say to them, hey, I'm going to be in your area this weekend. I'd love to meet you in person. At that point in time, we have totally thrown stranger danger out the window. These kids don't think of these online people that they're hanging out with as strangers. They're their friend. They're their best friend sometimes. And so when they say, I'm going to be in town and I want to meet you, there is no thought whatsoever that this could be a dangerous situation. This is somebody that they have talked to day in and day out for months, and they go meet them. And that's when we see these kids being taken. This is when we see these kids disappearing. This is when we start to see the Amber Alerts and the missing children alerts and things like that. And it's because these predators groom them and they take the time to build a relationship with them and they build that trust. And so once they have that trust and they have those relationships, that's when they pounce. And that's what you've got to get teenagers to understand, because they are trusting. And we don't want to take away that trust that they have. We don't want them to be jaded, but we do need them to be educated and understand that not everybody who pretends to be their friend is who they are. This is one I typically will say to the teenagers, okay, so tell me, how many of you lied about how old you were in order to get your social media page? Because most of them, you need to be at least 13 or older legally before you're supposed to get them. And they all kind of raise their hand, and because they normally have them between 10, 9, 11, depending on when their parents allow them to get them. So this is when I say to them, you know, if you lied about your age to get your social media and it was really easy, what makes you think that the people on the other side of the screen are telling the truth? If you don't really know them, you have no idea who you're truly talking to. So those are just some of the things. Snapchat is the other social media app that is one of the main things that teenagers use. It is right up there with Instagram, Snapchat, and TikTok. TikTok we're going to talk about next. But those are the three most popular apps that are being used by teenagers right now. Snapchat, the biggest thing is, you know, it was originally created to be a sexting app. When all of the things were coming out with kids who were getting bullied because they had sent pictures, the creators of Snapchat brought that out as a safe option to be able to sext and send your naked pictures without anybody knowing you were sending naked pictures, because they disappeared. We know that kids can screenshot and do all of those things, and so, but it is still a huge hub for sending naked pictures. It is still a revenue venue for that. We've come across, one of the girls that I was working with was a guy who would offer girls money to send them naked pictures, and then to send him naked pictures, and then he would turn around and sell it. And apparently it was a family business because his parents also did it. So it is something that it can be fun. There's lots of fun filters with Snapchat. You can have fun. I've laughed a lot of times over Snapchat filters and being silly, but there's a lot of dangers with it. One thing that a lot of kids don't think about is their Snap Map, which is a GPS, and it tells kids where they are at any time. And what they don't understand is if they have that on, it tells anybody that they allow follow them on Snapchat where they are. I have a police officer here that I work with locally in one of our counties, and he literally was able to pick up a suspect because of her Snapchat. He just followed her to the store because of her Snap Map and was able to then pick her up and arrest her. So understanding that the information that they can put out there. Snapchat has now allowed you to be able to send money via Snapchat, which is a little concerning to me as a mom, because it goes back to that whole naked picture and, you know, I'll send you $5 if you send me this picture kind of thing. And so that stuff is happening. So just understanding that this is a venue that kids use a lot because their conversations do disappear. They go away, the pictures go away. But the thing to understand, at least here, is that the kids, the police can pull whatever the kids post. So if you do run into an issue with your kid has something on Snapchat, somebody's sending them something, somebody is telling them something that is inappropriate that you're concerned about, but they're like, well, it's on Snapchat, it's gone, you can't see it. Know that, and know at least here, it can be subpoenaed. And the stuff on Snapchat never goes away. It's always on their servers and it can be pulled back. So we've had a couple of cases where that has had to be done. But there is a lot of stuff that happens on Snapchat. So just having those conversations again, being aware that kids are sending naked pictures all the time. It is a major issue here. I'm sure that we are not the only one that is having that issue, but it is something that happens very, very regularly. TikTok is, used to be Musically, and it is it changed from Musically to TikTok about 2 years ago now. The thing about TikTok is there's not a whole lot of filters. You can put some safety features on there to who can see your kids' videos, but there's not a whole lot of filter for what your children can see. Average age is about second, third grade are using TikTok. They're putting videos out there. There's a lot of content on TikTok because there is no monitoring of the content or the language that is put out there. It is a global app, meaning it is accessible by anybody. Anybody can see your kids, and they really say that it is not appropriate for anybody under the age of 16. And I can tell you that there are a lot of kids on TikTok. They are putting TikToks up, they're dancing. For those of you who don't know what TikTok is, there's a lot, it's dancing. People do all these dance moves, they do silly things, it's videos. It can be a lot of fun, but it also definitely has a lot of dangers involved there. They can, those videos don't ever disappear. They, you know, I can be listening to my kids, they'll be on TikTok and, you know, everything's sweet and funny. And then the next you have all of this language and all of this stuff coming on. And so it is hard to monitor that. And if you really want to watch what is going into your kids' eyes and minds, I would be very leery of letting them have it. My older two do have it. My younger one does not have any social media yet. She is not 13 yet. She won't be 13 until September. And at that point in time, we'll talk about what she's allowed to have, but I do not allow her to have social media because she's not old enough to process that. And that's the reason why they have ages on here. There's stuff that they're going to see when they're on social media. There's content that's going to come at them. There are people who are going to prey upon them. There are people that are going to engage with them on social media. And so, oops, sorry. That is something that just being aware, because you have to have these conversations with your kids before you give them social media. One of the biggest things I remember, I was in a class with the director, and he was talking about teaching a kid to drive. And we've gone through this with 2 children of teaching them to drive. And just, you know, in North Carolina, they have their permit for a year. They have to ride they have to drive for so many hours, so many daytime hours, so many nighttime hours. I took my kids through big cities. I made them learn how to parallel park. I, took them on different tests. I made them drive in the snow. I made them drive in the rain. I made them drive in different scenarios to get comfortable so that I knew that by the time they were in that car by themselves, that they were going to be safe. But it seems like we get cell phones and we just hand them over. And so you think about a car and how powerful, and just, we think about letting our kids go and drive a car, and what could happen. Well, those same dangers are there with a cell phone. Those same dangers are there with social media. And so if we are just lackadaisical and just give them this stuff without rules and boundaries, we're just really setting them up to get into some scary stuff. I'm going to go through these next apps kind of quickly. A lot of them are just very similar, but just kind of giving you that full picture. These apps that I chose are the ones that were put out by the police department and different areas of the most used, most dangerous kind of apps that are out there. So House Party is one of them. It allows a group chat. It has a live video chat option. It is known for its bullying and sexual content sometimes. If your settings aren't private, anybody can join into the house party. And that is anybody, they can watch into that house party. And so unfortunately, it can be good for study projects. It can be good for study time, but it also has a lot of things that could go really bad with that app. Tinder is, oops, hold on, what am I doing? Bear with me. Why am I? Okay, there we go. Tinder is a dating app. It is set up to meet strangers. This is one we find a lot of teenagers hopping on. And so this is one reason why I've put it on here. You get your likes and your dislikes. It also has location services on. It can tell you within walking distance of how close somebody is to you. So that can be very dangerous because they're just telling people where they're at without realizing they're telling people where they're at. Yubu is the next one. Let me see if I can get that. This one's more for children. So this is Tinder for kids, and it is for ages 12 and up. Again, there's no way to really verify age. So we see a lot of predators on this one, having easy access to the younger kids. And let's just be honest, you think about those 12-year-olds, 11-year-olds, they're in middle school. Lives are very weird at that time. Bodies are changing, hormones are raging, all kinds of stuff is going on. And that is probably one of their most vulnerable ages, is during that age time, because they want someone to just accept them and love them other than mom and dad. And so this is geared towards the younger kids. Meet Me is another dating app. You get points for meeting up with strangers. It encourages you to chat with strangers. The more strangers and more people you do not know that you interact with, the more points you get. So again, you look at all these apps and they are all geared towards meeting strangers. That's what a lot of these are all about. And that's where a lot of the scariness kind of falls into. Scout, again, it's another dating app. It's another dating site. It groups you by age, supposedly, but again, we know how easy it is to lie about our age. And so with all of these sites, the thing to just kind of keep in mind is that they're all easy to manipulate. They're all easy to lie about. And every site has had predators approaching people and hurting kids. Whether it's a trafficking situation, whether it's a molesting situation, a sexual predator situation, we have seen cases of all of these apps where things have happened that the police have had to be involved. Grindr is one that is for the gay, bisexual, transgender, and it's usually for men. And so there's a lot of profanity. There's a lot of adult content on this. There's a lot of bullying. There is a lot of we see there's a lot of bad stuff kind of connected to this app of when they meet up, abuse, bullying, things like that. So this is kind of a scary app if you see it on a kid's phone. So this one, I don't know how much is used now. It used to be fairly popular. This is the calculator app. It looks like a regular calculator, but when you put your code in, it lets you it's a hidden app. It's a hidden place. They can put pictures in here. They can do videos. They can do passwords. It has its own private browser. So when kids go in here, they can search things on the internet and it won't come up under their normal browser. So if they're looking at stuff like pornography, they don't want mom and dad to know. This is a perfect way to do that. 70% of teens are hiding online content. And that probably might even be higher than that. Knowing that our teens are not going to usually tell us everything. But I do feel like the more we can keep those lines of communication open, the more willing they are to share. Just being a mom of 3 girls, I've had times where my teenager has come in and has shared something with me. And, I have to admit, I'm sitting there like, oh, I don't want to know this. I don't want to hear this. I don't want to hear this. But just kind of swallowing through because, you know what, she is sharing with me. And I need her to share with me so that I can continue to guide her and direct her and help her. And so having those conversations, they're sometimes really hard to go through everything and to hear those conversations. But it's also important to have those conversations and that your kids feel comfortable talking to you about those hard things. Because you want them to come to you on the hard things, not to somebody else. So Xbox Live, and we're going to just talk about the gaming a little bit. Xbox Live is something that, you know, a lot of times parents will sometimes take away an Xbox or, you know, use it as a behavioral whatever, you don't get to play your games. But understanding that the login follows the kid, it does not follow the device. So if they go to a friend's house, if they go somewhere, they can log into that Xbox anywhere. Um, there is live chats, there is all of that with the Xbox. Xbox is one of the main ways that we see a lot of boys preyed upon. Throughout those video chats, throughout those gamings, you know, someone who is really good at the game and is giving them pointers and things like that. You can't send video and picture through Xbox unless it's live. So it does have a camera capability that they can take pictures, but you can't upload pictures. So it has to be live. So that's just kind of one of those things to know with Xbox. But they do play with strangers. They do play with people that they don't know. There is the online Xbox app, you know, ability that you can play games online. You can have permission to set up where it has to go through you. You can set up blocks for your kids, but you just need to really look at the safety guidelines of Xbox and where to put them and what to do. Online gaming, again, it is something that our kids are into, and even now with COVID and just what's going on, we just see, you know, it happening more and more. So Fortnite, we've had tons of arrests in the States of predatory behavior. Predators have been arrested. We've had, you know, sexual molestations and things that have happened. The Roblox, the Minecraft, those are some of the most popular here. I'm not sure what is exactly most popular with you guys, but I have a feeling that they probably run the same line of interest. So just being aware that it's not just all in the social media, it can be in gaming apps also. It's at it, predators are going to be there. So this is just something I added into this is, you know, who's at risk? When we really think about who could be at risk, we look at this list and it really could be anybody. It can be, you know, anybody who's under the age of 18 is at high risk. And I would actually put that even closer to 25 to 26. And because their frontal lobe is not developed yet, their brain is not developed. And that part of their brain that tells them that this isn't a good idea, I shouldn't do this, they're the ones who are going to be at risk. They're easily manipulated. And even when you think about the ones who want to be adults, and I'm an adult, I'm 18, but you're really not quite an adult yet. So that is going to affect, you know, they want consumer goods. They desire to have friendships. They desire to have relationships. They feel insecure. They feel lonely. They fight with their parents. And what I've seen throughout this time, a lot of these are even more so because they're isolated, because they're not with their friends, because they're not at school, where school could be the safe place for some of these kids. We're seeing that risk increase. We're seeing maybe some choices that are not always the best choices. So just understand that really, honestly, any child could be at risk. It doesn't matter who their parents are. It doesn't matter how great their parents are. Any child could be at risk. And so understanding that that is just a fact and making sure we have those conversations. I think we're getting close to time, so I'm going to head to my last slide, if I can get it to come up. It's not wanting to cooperate. Here we go. Bark is one of the things that I talked about. And this is probably one of my favorite apps for parents. It's $9 a month. It works for Android, iPhone, Kindle Fire, Mac, PC, Chromebook, and your account will cover all of those. It monitors their social media, it monitors their texts and emails. It will give a parent a text if they see something that's concerning. It looks for cyberbullying, adult contact, predators, profanity, suicidal ideation. So I would say that Bark is definitely worth the money if you're looking for something for $9 a month to really monitor, and you can do multiple lines with that. So And let me see if I can just get my last screen. Come on. But this will be the point, since my last screen is not coming up. There's a lot of information I just threw at you guys in a really short period of time, but I want to just share that this whole technology is kind of like a landmine. We're kind of walking through a landmine. We're walking through a lot of stuff. There's going to be questions. If you guys have questions, I would love to hear them. I would love to discuss anything with you guys. I'd love to see what you're seeing over there in Germany, and if it's similar to what we're seeing here. And just be able to kind of help you guys in this process, and help me learn also of just how we can protect our kids, because I think prevention to me is the number one key to protecting our kids, and just those conversations, those real conversations of how to protect our kids and make them understand what could be out there and how we can walk alongside of them. So I will go ahead and wrap up, Lana, if you want to say anything or.
Yes, Tricia, thank you so much. For those of you that just tuned in, Tricia mentioned she would love to answer questions. She would love to hear about what's happening in Germany. And we're recording this on Tuesday of June, but we're going to show it and share it with everybody on Saturday. And we're going to have the question screen up for you to ask all the questions you have, and also to mention some of the things that you're seeing right here where you live or in your country. But Tricia, I just want to say thank you so much. And I do have two people in the room with me right now. And if they have a question, I want them to kind of raise their hand and I'll let them ask a question. But I'll give them time to think first. For those of you that tuned in a little bit late, Tricia Bryan is from the U.S. She works with True Justice International, and she is actually working on her counseling degree right now. She is a lay counselor already, and she is the director of the Willforce. Some of the things you may not know about Tricia is she's a youth leader, gymnastics coach, and she loves young people. But not only does she love young people, as we heard today, she's passionate about giving parents what they need to know about different ways that their child could get in trouble. And Tricia, I want to say thank you so much for that illustration of teaching a child how to drive, but yet we hand our phones over to them. Thank you so much. I'm looking behind me right now in case there's a question. Okay, come up here. This is Bex.
Hi.
Hello.
So I have a quick question. Maybe you could just quickly explain how, because you always say, we're seeing a lot of this, we're seeing a lot of this. How are you seeing that? Are you doing studies on this? Are you in contact with the youth themselves? Where are you getting this information from, other than, of course, your own children?
It's a little bit of both. So I've had youth that have come into my office that I have dealt with. I have some police officers that I work with and have talked to them about some stuff in cases that they have encountered. And then even just in our news media, we are seeing just reports that we're getting. We're seeing more and more kids disappearing, more and more kids that are missing. Throughout this pandemic, we've had a lot of local kids that this child's missing, share this information, and they have met up with people. So it's a little bit of everything, just news media and seeing what I'm seeing, police officers and people that I work with, reports that are coming into our offices about different things, and then kids that I'm working with personally, teachers that I talk to. So it's a little bit of everything.
Okay, so you do have a good connection to the police, and they do share information there.
We do, yes. I have a couple different officers that I work with, yeah. And I have one who actually goes with me when I go into the schools in one of our counties, and he presents with me.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, there's just three of us in this room right now doing the pre-recording. So, and But I just want to say thank you so much. With this, I remember when I found out about Snapchat myself, and I thought, oh, this would be fun to do with my 12-year-old granddaughter. And so I sent a friend request to her, and her mom, who I just love dearly, said, there is no way I'm going to allow Snapchat. And I went, oh, I didn't know. You know,
Yeah.
you're the grandmother. And so I so appreciate you being passionate for us. I think this is something that definitely, as a ministry that works with human trafficking, and we see the end story sometimes
Yeah.
and many times, but yet there's a beginning story. And if we can keep that from happening, this is so important for each of
Yeah.
us. So I just want to say thank you so much, and we'll be getting back with you with all the questions and that come up in the comments. And I hope we can give you some things that are happening in Germany as well.
Yes, I would love to hear that.
Okay, but for those from Kainos that are listening to this um, on Saturday or even before that, we want your questions and comments on this because this can help us all so much. But thank you so much, Tricia. And I'm going to
You.
I'm going to close with a word of prayer. I don't think I opened with prayer. So,
You did.
but I did pray before. So let's pray.
Okay.
Lord, I thank you so much for Tricia. And I thank you for her passion for youth and young adults, Lord, that you are using her mightily. And Lord, I pray that you just expand her boundaries as she goes on and furthers her education and works with True Justice International. Lord, I thank you for today. And in your name we pray. Amen. Thank you,
Amen.
Tricia, very much.
Thank you. I'm glad we figured it out.